This man attacked the girl, but he didn't know she was not alone there. These children have been friends since early childhood, ever since Vanya was brought to live with the grandmother Claudia. His mother abandoned him when he was not yet 5. She went up from the village to the city and disappeared, as if she never existed. Marusa was always a wild walker, and she didn't care about her son at all. Grandmother Claudia took her grandson to her village. That's when he made friends with a neighbor girl, Ina. She was born in this settlement and lived there with her parents. Ina's parents died in a motorcycle accident. The mother was killed, the father survived but was seriously injured and was hospitalized for a long time. The girl was taken in by her neighbor, Claudia, and stayed with them for several months until her father returned home from the hospital. The girl thus became an orphan, and now also grew up without her mother. Also, after the father of Ina discharged from the hospital, grandmother Claudia took care of them all, as he was weak and was unable to take care of himself or of his daughter. Grandmother Claudia took care of both kids, made them study, fed them, protected them from any harmful thing could ever happen to him. But as they say, we are all not eternal. The grandmother fell ill and passed away suddenly. That day, the 2 kids were crying in front of the gate of the grandmother's house for their loss, and they didn't know what to do. In those moments, Ina was sitting beside her friend Vanya to console him, and she tried to stop crying to encourage him, as now he will be forced to go to an orphanage as there is no one to take care of him. While Vanya was looking toward Ina, he said to her, "Ina, tell me, why am I so unhappy? That my mother abandoned me, now my grandmother is dead, no one needs me." Ina replied, "You should not get upset. Time will pass quickly. You have only 5 years left until your 18th birthday, and I'm a bit older. You'll not notice when you come back to the village. My father and I will look after your home. Sorry, but my father did everything to take you in his custody, but he could not. They did not allow it. I'll wait for you and write you letters." Then, upon hearing those words from her, Vanya said, "I'll remember you all my life. You will always be in my heart. I will come back for sure. You just wait for me," he begged her eternally. When Vanya was taken away, the girl could not find herself. Her father, seeing his daughter's condition, tried his best to distract her, but nothing could comfort her. The only place she felt good was a forest. They often wandered along forest paths with their father. They dreamt of the future. Her father was a forest ranger lately. Ina started to help him in everything, checking under chickens and feeding troughs for moose and reindeer. They were spending a lot of time at work, and one day they came across a gazelle, who was monitored by a fox or a wolf. The young forest ranger was standing in the thicket, and she was hesitating to approach the baby gazelle. The mother gazelle was watching from afar. She must have understood that the forest ranger would help her child. The young ranger was known across the whole forest as she treated all animals kindly. The gazelle was sure that the ranger would help her younger to get rid of the trap. Ina called her father, and they began slowly to approach the young gazelle. His fur was velvet with a reddish tint and white spots. Just like in the pictures in the book, he was so beautiful. His black eyes looked straight at the scene. She reached out her hand and swallowed it. The father took out his knife and carefully cut the rope. Shyly shifting his thin legs, he stood still for a while and then rushed at full speed toward the mother. Soon they both disappeared into the woodland. Several years passed since then. Ina was finishing school and still helped her father and worked at the state farm part-time. Every summer, students came to the farm to work on potatoes. In the evening after the harvest, they went to the club to meet the local girls, and they walked around naively until morning, and a lot of guys came to see Ina. She was a pretty girl, but she never went out with any students. She did not like them. She wrote letters and waited for her beloved Vanya. At the beginning of the next summer, a team of mechanics from the city came to them. New equipment was to be installed. A young, handsome guy was among them. He liked the girl Ina and would not let her go. He gave her presents, sang songs, joked, offered her eternal love, but the girl would not accept his suitor's advances. In the village, women's tongues were wagging. They laughed at her, saying that she was different from all the girls of the present time, and that she was the only one who was not touched by a man. One day, she came to the shop, said hello, got in line, but local women started to pour dirt on her, and once again, she was making fun of her. Also, she said to her, it was obvious she grew up without a mother, no taste in auditing. Ina was playing nice, and she was walking around. Last year, she was with students, this year, with a worker. Also, that woman said to the others in line that the man called Jendi was trying with her every possible way to approach her, but she still was refusing him. Ina got annoyed and she ran to the woods behind the village where she loved that place. but now she wanted to throw herself down on a rock out of shame and resentment. Why were people so evil? She did not understand. She stood exactly on the edge. She got dizzy and spread her arms like wings, and at that very moment someone grabbed her by her hand and waist and pulled her to him. Then strong male hands began to wash off her clothes from her fright, and she could not say a word. Her heart thumped loudly. She fell and rolled down somewhere. She tried to cry for help or break free of the hated embrace, but it did not work. She understood that no one would hear her here. The girl saw her rapist for a moment. It was that guy Jendi from the mechanics brigade who was spreading dirty gossip about her in the village. The violence was inevitable, as suddenly at that very moment the gazelle appeared from the other side of the meadow. It flew across the whole field with its head down and its 10th antlers drawn forward as if it was ready for a fight. Jendi interfered for a moment, and the girl managed to free herself from his grasp. The noble beast nearly knocked down the hapless rapist and stood between him and the girl, covering her body with his. Jendi spat loudly and went toward the village. The girl could not believe her miraculous rescue. A small gazelle, once rescued by her father and her, today came to her rescue. Jendi knew that he could not do anything to the girl or that animal would kill him immediately, so he tried to retreat slowly, but he kept an eye on the girl. The gazelle protected the girl and followed her until she reached her house. Then, when her father saw her in that miserable status, asked her about what had happened. Ina told her father everything that had happened and how this man tried to rape her. Also, she told him about the miracle that occurred and how the gazelle came to her rescue from many years before. The father, upon hearing what Ina said, took her to the police station to fill out a complaint against the unrespectable man named Jendi. The police immediately reached where Jendi works and arrested him. Also, they warned the company of where he is working that they have to end their work fastly and go forever from this village as they are hiring bad people. And soon the brigade curtailed its work. All strange workers left the village. After this incident, all the girls and women in the village were looking to Ina with envy. They couldn't believe that she got out of that situation without a scratch. They couldn't accept the idea of being a saint like that, and she kept herself for only one person. They couldn't accept the idea of this eternal love they couldn't find. And what made the situation worse for them, and better for her, when after the month of what happened, reached to a village a very young and handsome man who looked very rich. He was Vanya, the lover of Ina. He headed straightly to Ina's house in front of all the village's eyes. He knocked on the door, and when she went to open it to find her beloved one, the one she was waiting too long. Yes, he is now older, but with the same face features and same lovely look on his eyes. He apologized to her. He apologized that he kept her waiting too long. He was working hard just to come to marry her in the village and to live together a comfortable life. She told him that she and her father kept his house clean and tidy. She told him how she was lighting the stove in the winter to keep it warm, and how she was preparing the good-smelled soup in the winter to keep the house smell good, and how she was opening the window every summer to let fresh air spread into the house corner. Vanya hugged the girl tightly, and he asked her for marriage. She immediately accepted. They held a very prestigious ceremony in the village and renovated Vanya's old house to live in it. Indeed, Ina was a very beautiful bride that astonished the present.